What's up, guys? It's your boy TPP. I'm back with that true crime talk, baby. Let's go. Before we get going, though, you know what's up? You know what I'm gonna ask? Help your boy out. Smash that like. If you're new here, don't even waste your time. Smash that subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to once you watch the video. Your boy's entertaining. And then, for the rest of y'all showing up again, for you repeat offenders to show up and watch my content, and you don't smash that subscribe, it's a shame, man. It's a shame. It's a shame. Why would you do it? Why would you keep showing up and watching my content? Obviously you like it. Why aren't you going to hit the subscribe? It doesn't make sense. The only thing I can think of is maybe you have an allegiance to another channel who doesn't like me, and you feel like you're betraying them and you don't want them to know. But it's okay. I won't tell them. I won't. The rest of the TPP crew, that consists of, all kinds of other crews, we're an eclectic bunch, but we're a solid bunch. And we won't tell them. We won't tell them you're here. Just hit the subscribe button, all right? It'll be okay. All right, let's jump into it, guys. I'm done with it. All right, I'll stop. All right, but they do it, man. 33% of these return viewers aren't subscribed, and it's just, I don't know what else to say. It's like we've got the number down. It used to be 60%. We got it down to 33, but still, we can work on this. I know I'm changing some minds and some hearts, but let's come on, man. Come on over. It's okay. Just push it. All right, guys, for real though, I'm done. Let's jump into it. All right, you guys, the topic, obviously, it's the mushroom murders. It's the new case out of Australia, and I did a video on this already. When I first found out about it, we did pretty much a little bit of a deep dive about it, as much stuff as I could figure out at the time. Well, after that video, I had started deep diving, found all these articles, all this information, right, to do another video on. And as I'm wrapping up some of my investigating, I get a message from one of my subscribers / true crime family, Sassy7, and she's like, "Hey, 60 Minutes Australia, they did a documentary on this, just dropped it a couple days ago. You should probably check it out." And I was like, "Well, dang, I'm gonna do that." So I was gonna start skimming through it and not watch it, but it sucked me in, and I ended up watching it. And the documentary covers everything we covered in the prior video, pretty much, plus more detail to it. And then, some stuff that I didn't cover. So this is as up to date as I can get. And I figured, why read all those articles? Well, we could just watch this documentary, and I don't have to put you guys to the suffering and listen to me read. You know what I mean? Especially the way I read it in 4-wheel drive. I can't help it, guys. I apologize. So at least if I'm on a 4-wheel drive, we could do the 4-wheel driving with interjections, fair use style on this documentary, and you guys don't have to be bored. All right? And you get all the cool visuals and whatnots. So that's what it is, guys. Let's jump into it. All right, let's get this thing pulled up. And before we even get it started, right? You guys do me a solid. Obviously, this is fair use, and we got to give 60 Minutes Australia their flowers. So if you could, go give them a little look-see. If you like their stuff, subscribe. If you're from that part of the world and you're into true crime, you should probably be subscribed to this one. They got a lot of good stuff, and especially after I did the research, right, and then found the documentary, and the documentary hit on everything that I was learning in the research. I was like, well, they do a proper job. So definitely check them out, guys. What's my little endorsement even matter, right? These people are like 5.37 million, but check them out regardless. Especially if you like I said, if you like the true crime. Come on. My girl Tashi didn't even know about this case. Maybe if she had this channel, she should have heard. So check them out. All right, guys, I'll shut up. Let's start watching this thing.
Saturday, July the 29th, in the small Victorian town of Leongatha. A family lunch. The guests, Don and Gail Patterson. Local Baptist pastor Ian Wilkinson and his wife Heather. Tell me how I ended up here. The cook and the host, Erin Patterson. The meal, beef Wellington. Now I can't breathe. Tonight, we investigate this fatal family feast.
Yo, how many of you guys have had beef Wellington? I've never had it. I mean, I've heard of it. I mean, I've heard a lot of different food that I haven't tried. I've never had the opportunity to try beef Wellington, but man, is it good? Any of you know? Sounds good when they're describing it. It sounds pretty delicious. Or maybe I'm just hungry right now. All right, I'll stop.
Was it a deadly accident involving one of our most toxic fungi? Or was there another reason for these terrible deaths in this small town?
It gets you in because, on one hand, you know, was it a innocent tragedy or was it a premeditated murder or triple murder?
Our team of experts include former Victorian detective and private investigator Damien Marrett. He talked to locals who know the families. You've been there, you've had a look around. What do we know? This was a family lunch.
Yeah, there's problems in the family, and those 4 people came around because I suppose they're sort of mentors. They're there for sort of a referee, a reconciliation between Erin and her separated husband, Simon. A lot of people and connected to the Baptist church say that Simon's parents weren't too happy about any reconciliation.
Who organised the get-together or the lunch?
I believe it was Erin.
Yo. So this is this is part of that information I'm telling you that brings more context to this story. We didn't really know all that detail in the last video. Like, this is all about reconciliation, right? And his parents weren't feeling it. It was well known. And then his parents not feeling it, being as important as they are in the community there, and her husband, her estranged husband's aunt and uncle, super influential there. And these are all the victims. No coincidence, man. Come on, this can't be a coincidence, right? Am I wrong? You guys gotta think the same thing, right? Can't be a coincidence. And you know the other survivor that's waiting for transplant. It's in critical condition. You know that's probably just by pure luck or God's grace that he didn't die too. He probably should have died too. The fact that he's in the condition that he's in, they all died, and then Miss Erin just got sick to where she had a little medication and she was good to go. But come on, man, it's too sus. It's too sus. But I even speculated in the last video that there had to be something to be gained, right? And I don't know. It just, maybe that's what it was. She was getting rid of all the people that would oppose her getting back with her man. She takes them out, right? Then all of a sudden, there's nothing in her path to him, and she gets to console him with his loss. Seems pretty legit. Seems like a pretty legit, speculation. Just my opinion, but come on, sounds legit, right? Let's proceed.
Former Victorian Major Crime Squad detective and an expert bushman, Alex Christich. Look, Alex, on the face of it, it's a Saturday lunch. It's what happens in a lot of homes, a gathering of people. For whatever reason, it seemed, on the face of it, quite benign.
Well, for all intents and purposes, it's a lunch between 5 people. Benign, I suppose, would probably be the best way to describe it.
A lot of people do have relationships with in-laws beyond separation and relationships breaking down. That's not completely unusual.
Also joining our table is clinical psychologist Tamara Cavanagh.
Often, yes, there's conflict in families. I think everyone knows that. So just because things give the appearance of being amicable doesn't always mean that they are, and things are often unspoken.
But no matter the family dynamics that day, tragedy would strike.
The group became sick the following day and went to hospital thinking it was gastro, but their conditions deteriorated.
Can you imagine that, waking up the next day and just thinking you got some food poisoning? And reality is no, bro, you dying. You done been poisoned with some stuff like toxin that is absolutely devastating. It'll get into it, guys. Trigger warning. This gets into some details that if you think too much about an aspect of what those people went through, it's rough, man. It hits you in the feels. But I digress.
July the 30th, the day after the lunch, all 4 guests are admitted to hospital. Their symptoms strongly suggest they've been poisoned by a deadly mushroom, the death cap. 6 days later, on Friday, the 4th of August, Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson die. By the next day, Don Patterson is also dead. And tonight, Pastor Ian Wilkinson remains in hospital. Can I bring you in here, Michael? When somebody arrives with symptoms of poisoning, and if we are to presume it's from this mushroom, how would you know? How quickly can you determine that?
That's what I'm saying too. It's like, can you imagine being in the hospital and you start to get multiple patients with like same symptoms and they're all rolling in thinking it's probably like food poisoning, but it's not. Like, how the hell do you figure that out? You know what I mean? And it's like critical to figure it out fast because these toxins are so devastating. It's immediate response. You have to have an immediate response or else it's it. It's game over. Crazy.
Well, that's one of the interesting things with this toxin and this mushroom is that there's usually a delay of many hours after you've eaten the mushroom and ingested the toxin before you actually start to get sick.
Dr. Michael Robertson is one of Australia's leading forensic toxicologists.
So they've gone home. They've finished lunch. I presume they probably felt okay. If we're dealing with the death cap mushroom, they're feeling fine. They go home. It may be that they're on their way to bed later in the day and now they start to feel quite unwell, which is why sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to then think, what did I have at lunch?
Please enlighten me. All patients at the same hospital, yeah?
Yes.
And the hospital would have been aware that all of this happened in or about the same location at about the same time.
Yep.
So some medical sleuthing at least might say to you, this group was together somewhere and they've all turned up sick. So perhaps that's where it's come from.
If the patient was coherent, because one of the things that happen with the toxicity is when you start vomiting, you also partially can be hallucinating.
Dr. Heike Neumeister-Kemp is a mycologist, an expert in mushrooms.
Now, check this out. Now, could you imagine they all come in, but they're in a position, a condition where they can't even explain to the doctors what they've eaten or what they've done in the last 24 to 48 hours. It was like, how would they figure it out then at that point where none of the patients can tell you what has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours? How do you figure out that it was mushrooms? How do you figure out that the fact that all these people were together when it happened, if they came in separate? Like, it definitely was some good medical sleuthing to get it figured out to even figure, that they were all from the same, event. Maybe I'm just a nerd and thought that was interesting, but because think about it, dude, they don't have the ability to tell the doctors any type of information, and the doctors can't really track it back to anything. They would have never known it was this mill that did it. And you're talking about somebody possibly getting away, like straight up scot-free with murder. Four-wheel drive, my bad, guys.
Mushroom poisoning, it is so nasty because we don't really have an antidote. We don't have an anti-venom that we can, you just get an injection and now that's over and done with.
We've heard about the violent vomiting, diarrhea, and in fact that first phase can be really quite debilitating in and of itself. It's then when the people start to feel better that they think it's over and done with.
It's called the honeymoon period, when the victim feels they're recovering. But in truth,
it's kind of like hypothermia, right? It's like once you're actually at the state of expiring, you actually aren't really in pain. You really don't know what's going on. You don't actually realize what's happening to you. So this sounds pretty similar. You think that you're out the woods, you're gonna start feeling better, and then you done.
The death cap mushroom is a ruthless killing machine. Its poisonous toxin sparks a vicious cycle, so that even after it's been excreted, the body continues to destroy itself. Michael, this horrific cycle, this toxic cycle that I had no idea happens.
It's one of those toxins that gets into your system. We don't know necessarily how it works completely. It gets absorbed into the bloodstream. It then gets transported to the liver and it gets absorbed into the liver. The body doesn't break this toxin down, so we've actually just got to get rid of it, usually in the urine, but also in the bile. And the bile duct drops bile back into the intestines. It's triggering basically the death of the liver cells.
In essence, you're telling me your body's trying to get rid of it, but then it's still in there and it's started killing you.
Exactly.
And then the toxin leaves, but your body's still turning on you.
That's right. Well, the toxin's gone within a few days.
On a DNA.
You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like immediate response must be taken. Immediate emergency response, or else you are done. And what they're describing right now, oh my God, you know how agonizing that would be? That would be horrible. You get through this little honeymoon phase where you're thinking you're out in the woods, and all of a sudden it's DEFCON. Man, it is, it's no good. That sounds like one of the worst ways to go right there. I mean, poisoning in general has got to be one of the worst ways to go, right? It hands down. No matter what type of toxin you're getting, it's going to do something real dirty to you. And the pain is going to be excruciating. Yeah, just give me the fast out. You know what I mean? If you're trying to get me out of here, don't do it like that. Just give me an old-fashioned, pew and call it a day. Fucking poisoning. That's so rough. I mean, it's like, do they choose poisoning because it's more secretive, less messy? Or do they choose poisoning because it's more excruciating and painful, agonizing? Which one is it? Good question.
DNA level, you literally regurgitating the toxin, and then slowly but consistently your liver literally dissolves.
God,
and that is the really sick making part here.
For the three who have died, it was a horrific end.
Yes, it would have been a number of days. It would have been a horrible, if they remained conscious, they may have gone into a coma, I don't know, but if they remained conscious, certainly that first day would have been absolutely horrific.
Those who've eaten death cap mushrooms and survived do not forget the dreadful symptoms. Canberra man Simon Claringbold found the mushrooms in his garden. Today, he feels lucky to be alive.
I thought, geez, those mushrooms look great. I'll have them on my spaghetti bolognese tonight. 18 hours later.
What's up with Australia? Y'all cooking fancy stuff with mushrooms. Y'all Gordon Ramsay out there and stuff? What is going on? Cook something fancy and you just pulling some shrooms out your garden. You know what I mean? Hey, trust me, I'm all down with the homesteading. I love to grow things. I've grown all kinds of things. But, yeah, you don't mess around with mushrooms, bro. You better know exactly damn well what type of mushroom you are collecting, because it goes sideways real quick. Obviously, this man's telling the story of it going sideways, but come on, man. Come on. You can go through all the work of making some type of fancy-ass meal, and you can't at least just go down the store and get some mushrooms, bro. And then think about it, too, bro. I see you got a dog. Your dog probably peeing all over the damn garden, man. Piss shrooms. It's all bad.
I started being really violently ill. I just felt this impending doom, because so basically I knew I was poisoned and the poison was slowly overcoming my body, and there was no way out. So you're just sort of contemplating the fact that you're facing the end.
For 11 days.
Yo, I'm gonna give it to you Australians though. Australians are hard they're hard, man. Y'all some tough ass people. For real. A lot of the Australians I know, dude, tough people. Just mentally, physically tough ass people.
Days, Simon stared at death.
I was convinced that I was going to die, and so I recorded video messages for my children because I knew I was going to be missing that part of their lives.
I ain't even lying, dude. I ain't even gonna lie. 90% of the male population over here in America, this same shit's happening. Dude, they're crying. All right? They're crying. If they're doing any type of anything with some type of digital anything, is they're probably posting crying on Instagram or Twitter or wherever. They ain't make a video diary, a video will. Dude, Australians a different breed, man. Much love, dude. For real.
It's basically just waiting. Sort of on death row, just waiting.
Tamara, that sense of doom, psychologically, people do feel that, don't they?
They do, because it's one of those times in life where you are just have your entire brain overwhelmed with the emotions that you're experiencing and the sense of fear.
This is so big, I'm not going to survive.
Absolutely. And it can cause traumatic reactions for years to come because they've been through what is essentially near death.
You struck a house of cards.
The person at the centre of this tragedy is mother of two, Erin Patterson.
Here's one thing you need to do before buying anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch the...
She has been named as the person of interest, but only because she was the cook. And as police pointed out, it doesn't mean she is guilty of a crime. It has, though, put this seemingly shy, very private person at the centre of a very public and global media storm.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital. The loss of Ian and Heather and Gail. They were some of the best people that I've ever met.
Bro, I'm telling you, that... Tell me y'all wave your hands too right now. That seemed like the fakest, right? Was that not the worst acting job ever? Like when you're faking actually giving a crap, you don't forget people's names or who actually died or who's in the hospital. You know what I mean? Like, do you see? Facial expression. It was all wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm a jerk. Maybe I'm a jerk. I don't know. Maybe I'm a judgmental jerk. But I think that was some BS right there. I think that was a giant load of BS.
Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me. I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us?
And the loss to the community and to the families and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Everything about Erin Patterson is under scrutiny. How would she be coping, Tamara?
So, I mean, obviously she'd be under incredible stress and pressure.
Talking about her mother-in-law being the mother she never had. She had a mother up until 4 years prior. How is she the mother you never... And then the constant wiping my eyes and just... I don't know, guys. I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm a jerk, but I'm sensing deceit.
Absolutely overwhelmed.
You make the point that with the knowledge that the world is looking at you and you have, a lot of media at your door, it is hard to respond naturally.
So whenever we have, intense, I guess, attention to us.
I don't like that right there, though. I don't like that right there, what they're doing to her. That shit ain't cool. Like some of you guys that watch Dolly Vision, he'll tell you, like, he's talked about it, the actual, like, major media, some of the grimiest, dirtiest ones out of any of the media. It's because of stuff like this. You see how he's positioning himself in between her and where she's trying to go, forcing her to make contact with him. I don't like it, dude. That stuff's dirty. Especially watching a man do it to a woman. I especially don't like that shit. Apologize for my words, but I don't like it, man. I don't like it at all. But guilty, if she's guilty or not, I don't like it.
It can change how we respond. You can actually really struggle because it'll kick in your fight and flight, and a lot of your responses can often appear incongruent with what people would expect.
Erin, how are you going? Are you okay?
I'm going shit house. Thanks for asking. You guys aren't helping.
That's where we fall into an unfortunate judgment, don't we? Because this is in public now.
Certainly. So, there's historical cases where people have been entirely exonerated of something and people have judged their presentation, particularly in front of the media, and have decided whether they believe that indicates guilt or otherwise.
Lindy Chamberlain.
Yeah, it's the Australian case that comes to mind. And it's simply because we have all of these expectations about what we think is appropriate for a response in high stress.
Alex, when you look at Erin Patterson, what do you think?
There are a lot of variables involved in situations like this. She may well not have done anything wrong, but she may well also be a person of interest or a suspect. You can rest assured that there will be no stone unturned regarding Erin's background, her conduct, her behaviour, things that she has been involved with, inquiries she's made, things that she's done.
And as a police officer, you do look at Erin's public appearances, don't you?
Of course you do, but...
Of course you do. Of course you do. I think we're all pretty familiar, us people that are deep off in true crime, we're all pretty familiar with law enforcement watching these cases through our feeds, through our videos. It definitely does happen. 100%. I like this guy. He keeps it 100.
But you can't allow that to sway you as far as investigators concerned.
So you can't be swayed by she seems so terribly upset, as much as you can't be swayed by is she really upset?
Well, if you've got three people that you love have all of a sudden died as a result of having a meal at your place, you wouldn't be human if you weren't in some way upset or showed some sort of emotion. As detectives, we don't operate on emotions. We operate on facts.
Facts, baby.
Can't believe it.
Let's go.
In the media scramble to learn more about the mushroom meal,
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from?
Erin Patterson found...
See, that's another good question too, right? Because she claimed to have gotten the button mushrooms from the market, but then claimed to have gotten the dried mushrooms from some Asian store. What Asian store? Which one? Nobody's ever said anything about what store. I haven't seen anything about what store it was. It was just an Asian store. Well, come on, somebody give me that info. I need that info. Which one? If it was, which one? And if it was the Asian store that you got it from, and you got enough of these mushrooms to kill that many people, how come nobody else in the community came out sick or dead? Huh? Shh. You need to know about that store. You need to know about that store now.
herself being pushed for answers. So the media asking questions intrigues you.
Of course it does.
And the answer must intrigue you.
If there is an incidental admission or comment made by a suspect, that can well become evidentiary material.
And Erin Patterson at that point was asked about the mushrooms. You would look at that?
Well, of course, it's probably the most significant aspect of the case. We take everything. Everything's on the table if you're an investigator.
Coming up, the deadly dish.
If you were intended to mask the fact that there was mushrooms in a dish.
Okay, so that whole aspect right there of how law enforcement does look at the media, whether it be major media or social media, to see if a suspect's slipping. That whole idea and premise is what drives a lot of YouTube content creators to cross lines. It does. Because a lot of them want to be, on the ground, and they want to be up in there getting that information that hopefully helps close the case. Which I get it. I definitely do. But that's what puts people on the scene and getting themselves a little bit too far into investigations. I ain't talking about showing up and searching for people. What I'm talking about is actual investigations. People want to show up at people's work or homes to question them, or want to get them on their channels to question them and interject themselves into this case so that they can be that one that breaks that information. And 9 times out of 10, they step over the line. And they basically make the whole genre look bad by looking super unprofessional. You don't do it.
Dish, that would probably be a fairly good way of doing it.
And those mushrooms.
If one wanted to obtain this fungi, it is certainly available.
Under the microscope. It was not just one mushroom.
10 or more of these caps at least.
That's next on Under Investigation.
10 of those caps. That's a lot of shroom, bro. 10 caps. 10 caps, man.
Multiverses.
Just 2 caps for the wrong mushroom will set you in a star.
Tonight, we're investigating the traumatic but curious deaths in country Victoria.
This tragic story that has gripped not only Australia, but now
that have become one of the most talked about mysteries around the world.
That massive saga going on down under.
New questions swirling about the deadly mushroom mystery.
3 people are dead and a 4th is critically ill.
A Saturday lunch where only 2 of the 5 diners survived.
The deaths are unexplained.
I like how they sensationalize how crazy this case is and how big it is. When, one, it took me forever to hear about it, okay? And I do true crime. I'm constantly in true crime every day. And then Tashi is in Australia, and she does true crime. Well, she's constantly in true crime, right? She supports multiple friends' channels. She's a true crime person. And she didn't even know about this case. So that's funny to me. Crazy. It's crazy how the media can really make things just sensationalized, and it just isn't.
And for that purpose, we are involved.
And a meal feared to have in it a deadly and toxic mushroom.
It's certainly looking like, the symptoms are consistent with death cap mushrooms.
Served up to guests was the quintessentially British dish, beef Wellington. It's a challenging choice for any home cook. Recipes vary, but it involves beef coated with a mushroom paste and then rolled in pastry. It's not only difficult to make, but for diners, the mushrooms are not easy to detect as they're blitzed and often mixed with other ingredients. Alex Christich.
Well,
that's a key fact, guys. That's a key fact. That this specific dish, in my opinion, was chosen because of the fact that you would not taste the mushrooms, and then the amount of mushrooms that needed to be used to accomplish the goal needed to be hidden, and the meal was perfect to do that.
As an investigator, I would want to get down to the nitty-gritty of
what do you need to know?
I would go all the way back to the preparation of the meal. I would want to know about the processes in obtaining the ingredients, preparing the ingredients, where everything came from. Did I taste it for flavour? And then how the meal was distributed.
It has been reported that Erin Patterson, the host and cook, told police Everyone at the fatal lunch chose their own portions of the beef Wellington. She said everybody selected their own plates. She then took the plate and ate a serve of beef Wellington herself.
Yeah. Every detail of that meal, from the preparation aspect right through to the completion of the meal.
And starting with, why did you choose that meal?
If you were intended to mask the fact that there was mushrooms in a dish, that would probably be a fairly good way of doing it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yo, see, that's what I'm saying, man. And then think about this, too, the way that you make beef Wellington, what I understand now. She could have not put that mushroom paste on the side that she was going to consume and then positioned the dish and started the cuts off at the opposite end. That way people started taking slices from the opposite end of where the paste wasn't. Just an idea. She could have did that. Yet, obviously, cooking that mushroom would put that toxin throughout all of the meal. It wouldn't be as concentrated on the part that she would have eaten, which would explain why she got ill, but she didn't get deathly ill. You know what I mean? Just my speculations.
What I was trying to establish is whether or not the people were actually aware that it was mushrooms that they were eating.
Well, could you taste them, Heike? I mean, if there's a bad mushroom, can you taste a bad mushroom?
You wouldn't taste a bad mushroom. Also, it's not that it tastes bitter or anyhow unpleasant. So it would be probably nice to consume.
Mushroom expert, mycologist Dr. Heike Neumeister Kemp says if the toxic death cap mushroom is the culprit, the guests at the lunch would have had to consume more than one.
I tried to calculate how much mushrooms, if you have for 5 people, you probably need 10 full mushrooms to actually get enough paste to have that in there. So there should be a fair amount of this mushroom for preparing one of those meals.
Michael Robertson, it was not just one mushroom that was a rogue in the system.
Well, I think if mushroom toxins have caused these illnesses, then it's almost certainly more than just one. Again, we know that 1 per person will make them quite ill. You might need 2 per person to lead to death. Just to be clear, when we look at the mushrooms and we're talking about the cap, the top here, that's where the majority of the toxin sits.
Yo, what if, let's kick this idea around. What if she made not 1 platter, but 2 platters of the Wellington? Okay, hear me out. Hear where I'm going with this. She made it to what I explained, where maybe she left the area where there wasn't the paste, but yet that still got, toxins in it, because when you cook, those alkaloids and all that's going to flow, the juices are going to flow throughout all the meat. So that being said, that would explain how she got a little sick. They all died, almost all of them, all but 1. And then the next day she claims that her kids had leftovers. And then there's also reports that I believe the hospital ended up with samples of the food. So what if she made 2 platters? Her and the victims ate off 1 platter, and then what the kids ate off of, and then what was turned into the hospital was from a different platter that wasn't prepared the same way. Just ideas, guys. Just throwing out some ideas. Because there's going to be a lot more that comes out on this case. There's got to be a lot more to this. Because if it is true that her kids did consume some of it, like we reported in the last video, even if she scraped that paste off, bro, it's still going to do the job. They're still going to get sick, and they didn't get sick if they did eat any beef Wellington. Ideas, man. Just some ideas. 4-wheel drive, baby. Let's go.
What is intriguing is why the 4 guests became so desperately ill, but the cook, Erin Patterson, did not. And nor did her children, whom she says later ate the dish as leftovers after she had scraped the mushroom paste away.
As investigators, we've got to keep an open mind. If she says that she's scraped the mushrooms from the plates before she served it to her children, you would ask her why she did that.
She does say she scraped the mushrooms from that dish because they don't like mushrooms.
But I thought that the mushroom was actually as a paste? How could you actually physically scrape it off? There are so many questions. What was then the possibility of somebody ingesting how much of what? How come the children did not get sick? Or how was it that 3 people die and the 4th person didn't?
I mean, is it possible to have such a difference in reactions?
Well, I would have thought if they had the same amount of toxin, you will have some subtle differences perhaps based on the health of an individual and how fit, young perhaps, you might suffer less. But this is a highly toxic component of these mushrooms, and I would have expected to have seen quite significant toxicity regardless.
I was just going to ask Michael, if she had to cook those poisonous mushrooms within that meal, the beef Wellington, would the toxins have gone into other parts of that meal?
Yes. So these toxins are interesting insofar as they're fairly heat stable, snake venom and...
100% true. 100% true because, I mean, I don't personally know this, but I've heard that you could take certain types of mushrooms and put them in some water with some heat and make a little tea out of them, and it'll take you on a trip and a special magical rocket ship. I'm just saying that's what I heard. So it has to be true that the heat don't hurt the toxins. I'm just saying. I don't know. I just heard it, guys. I just heard about it. Just saying.
Marine venom and all those other types of venom and toxins are often able to be degraded when they're heated up. And that's often why we pour hot water on people when they've had a sting. These toxins in the mushrooms are fairly stable when you add heat, but they're also quite water soluble. So once you have a mushroom in a liquid, you're then going to have leaching of some of the toxin, not all of it, but some of the toxin then will move into other parts of the food.
Thinking about going solar, but not sure whether it's worth it for your home. Well, before you...
So how did one of the world's deadliest of mushrooms get into Erin Patterson's beef Wellington? It's a central question in this tragic story. Erin Patterson says she used fresh button mushrooms from a local supermarket and dried mushrooms she had bought in an Asian grocery store months before.
And all my cooks out there will tell you this makes no damn sense why she did this, but just adds to the sus level, right? Absolutely.
Michael, we know the button mushrooms should not have been a problem, so it would have to be in the dried mushrooms that...
I mean, because the dried mushrooms, you literally would have to prep the dried mushrooms to even use them for the paste, right? You'd have to like rehydrate them, or water would had to be added to the mix to get them the right consistency to make a paste out of them. So it doesn't even make sense why you would use the dried mushrooms unless there was some type of medicinal effect you wanted from those specific mushrooms. This wasn't exactly the right medicine, though.
Erin Patterson has told us she added to the mixture. That would mean just about every mushroom in the packet would be if it's a death cap, be a death cap. And how likely is that? And how lucky is the rest of the community that they too didn't get sick if that is where it's sourced from?
And I guess that's a lot of good questions that I suspect there's a lot of people out there trying to answer. But that's in effect what you would need. You would need a good number of however many were in the packet to have been death cap mushrooms.
Former detective Damien Marrett says it's important to know if others have fallen ill, particularly if toxic mushrooms were part of a dried batch Erin Patterson says she bought in a packet months before.
It wouldn't have been the only packet there on the shelf, and nobody else has died or got sick that we know of. Others would have bought that same packaged mushroom.
Imported dried mushrooms are subject to intense scrutiny by Australian authorities. A spokesman for the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry told Under Investigation there is no evidence of death cap mushrooms ever being imported into Australia.
This is true. I actually, I'm pretty big into like homesteading and growing my own food. I've grown a lot of different things. I got into mushrooms big time. I actually wanted to start to do like gourmet mushrooms. And dude, I'm telling you, regulations and this and that for certain areas on shipping and sales, it's pretty stringent. They ain't lying.
I think it's very, very important, whether it's an Asian supermarket or any supermarket. The mushroom food industry is so heavily regulated and extremely well guarded because of the knowledge that there could be poisonous mushrooms. So it is checked, double checked and triple checked.
There is one other source of death cap mushrooms. They grow wild in the area where this tragedy occurred, and it is a region known to foragers who are given warnings about what to collect. We do know, Heike, that the death cap, as we understand it, is in the Gippsland area where the families lived.
Yeah, the death cap is actually Amanita phalloides and lives very...
Yo, I murdered that name. In the last video, guys. I got that meat part right, but the last part I murdered.
Closely to where oak trees are, and there is certainly a lot of oak trees there. So there is the possibility, if one wanted to obtain this.
Some of the best mushrooms be growing around oak trees. That's all I know. That's all I can tell you.
This fungi, it is certainly available.
If you've got a poisonous mushroom in the system here, touching them is not necessarily going to make you sick?
No. Also touching the mushroom does not make you sick. Most of the toxin is actually in the cap and a little bit more also in the stalk. But if you just touch it and don't actually ingest, people did not necessarily fall sick.
Mushroom poisoning in Australia does occur, but identifying toxic species is still an issue. Switzerland takes the threat so seriously, it employs mushroom police.
Damn.
From the Swiss capital Bern to the smallest towns, there are inspection stations for mushrooms called Pills Control.
Yes, it saves life, definitely.
Iris Martaylor has been an official mushroom inspector for over a decade.
We are 10 people in Bern controlling. But overall, Switzerland, we have many, they are doing the same thing. We have a lot of poison mushrooms that we take off when we control. If we can prevent one death, that will be wonderful.
Like the rest of the world, there has been wide reporting of the Victorian mushroom case in Switzerland.
I heard that a wife made a filet Wellington with mushroom sauce, and in the sauce she had cap mushrooms.
In fact, similar poisonings were the reason the Swiss established its inspection program.
Cap mushrooms, to have the first symptoms, it takes between 8 and 12 hours after you have eaten them. If really they would have eaten the mushrooms, because that's still a question, you know.
So, I mean, all that being said, talking about the regulations and this and other stories that are similar to this, it's hard for me to believe that she got these mushrooms from a store and this happened. I'm having a hard time buying that. And then, if she did forage them herself, you would think foraging in an area that is known for poisonings, that has actual signs up, that culture there would know better as far as what mushrooms you can and can't consume. So for her to have went out and picked those specific ones and enough of that specific one to do the job, I just don't see how that could be accidental. You know, if it was in the Asian, store. But I'm telling you, man, I don't see how it could have came from that store. You know what I mean? With the regulations and stuff, the inspection regulations on the mushrooms. I don't know.
It has to be believed that everyone at the lunch on that winter's day in late July had no idea how badly it would end. Coming up,
I still can't get my head around the dumping of the dehydrator.
Erin Patterson says her ex-husband said, "Is that what you used to poison them?" The cook tells her side of the story.
If I'd done nothing wrong and telling the truth to get it off my chest and defend myself, the truth never changes.
That's next on Under Investigation.
This is a vodka with no afterburn. I hate burning. White Claw, premium vodka.
That's something cheap and just buy YouTube Premium.
Victoria's deadly mushroom mystery has had an appalling impact. A small community has lost 3 of its residents, and a 4th clings to life. All would have suffered terribly.
Was it an innocent tragedy, or was it a premeditated murder or triple murder?
And Erin Patterson, the woman who cooked their last lunch, has had to endure intense scrutiny.
Erin, how are you going? Are you like, I'm going shit house, thanks for asking. You guys aren't helping.
Erin Patterson gave a statement to police after initially choosing not to comment. She changed her mind, she says, because she was extremely stressed and overwhelmed by the deaths of her loved ones. Tamara Cavanagh, it's hard, isn't it, not to want to speak up for yourself?
It's incredibly hard with media and public scrutiny. I think if you speak to anyone who's ever had their reputation damaged publicly or put into question, they have a keen desire to speak out for whatever their point of view may be.
That's what I have to say.
Erin Patterson's statement, according to police, was not taken by investigators. Rather, it appears it was supplied to them by her lawyers. Alex, what's the importance in the difference here? A statement that you put out and a statement that the police take?
Well, legal practitioners probably would have in the back of their mind what's best for their client. And sometimes material could be included or excluded depending on what the circumstances are.
Is it smart to get on the front foot? In this situation,
Look,
she's being attacked in the media.
If I'd, for instance, I'll speak for myself, and if I'd done nothing wrong and telling the truth to get it off my chest and defend myself, the truth never changes. Most people, where they are genuinely innocent of what's occurred, will spill it all out and give it to you warts and all.
In her written statement, it's reported in the media, Erin Patterson admitted a lie to police. It concerns a food dehydrator, a kitchen appliance commonly used to dry fruit, vegetables and mushrooms. Patterson initially told police she'd disposed of hers a long time ago, then suggested it was after the lunch when she panicked and dumped it at the tip.
I mean, why would you lie about that at all? Like, why would that be part of any of the lie? I mean, why? I mean, it doesn't make sense. If you had nothing to cover up, why would that lie come up at all? At all. Sus, guys, I'm telling you, there's so much about this that is forming my opinion and my speculations, and there's so many sus things.
Her fears, she says, were about the consequences after her former husband, Simon, allegedly said to her at the hospital, "Is that what you used to poison them?"
Well, she was conscious of the fact that she hadn't been entirely frank with investigators.
Right. That raises questions for you as an investigator?
It certainly does.
You're right.
Look, telling lies to police isn't an offence, and she may have told the lie for a specific purpose, but if she was doing it to exculpate herself from any activity, that's something that you can draw conclusions from. And it's certainly something that, if it was to be presented to a jury would be allowed to draw their conclusions based on.
What happened is devastating, and I'm grieving too.
We must point out that Erin Patterson says the reason for all of this is that she was at the hospital with her children discussing the food dehydrator when her ex-husband said, "Is that what you used to poison them?" And she said that she was worried that she might lose custody of the children, the couple's children. She panicked.
Look, when people are under any type of pressure...
Why would you panic? Why would you panic? Seriously, if that food dehydrator had nothing to do with mushrooms at all, in this case, why would you panic? Come on. Could there be a bigger damn red flag?
Pressure, stress, anxiety, and confusion, they can give all of the signs of someone who is both lying. So they can appear nervous, fidgety, they can contradict their own story, certainly make changes to a story that they've told. And all of that is actually perfectly predictive of someone who's in high anxiety and high stress, as much as it's perfectly predictive of someone who's lying. We can't actually tell when people are lying very well.
And we do know in a court of law, lies alone are not evidence. You have to know why the lie is being told. In fact, I think it's very clearly stated that a lie alone isn't necessarily appointed to guilt.
No, but it's something that may indicate a consciousness or a level of culpability.
Our investigator on the ground is former Victorian detective Damien Marrett. He followed a number of leads, and they included Erin Patterson's disposal of the food dehydrator at the local refuse centre.
There's two tips. There's one in Kurumburra, which is 13 k's from Leongatha, and there's another tip in Coonawarra, but that's about half that distance. So she's decided to go to the Coonawarra tip, and on speaking with workers there, interestingly, without saying when did she come or anything like that, one of them stated to us that, I don't know because I wasn't working Saturday morning. Now, this is after...
Saturday morning. That's the morning of the lunch.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense.
Yo, here's what I think happened. Speculation. This is what I think happened, is I think that she planned this, and the day of her pulling those mushrooms out of that dehydrator to use them in that meal, when she pulled those mushrooms, she went and got rid of that dehydrator. And then I think the conversation that she had where the dehydrator was brought up while she was in the hospital, she was probably talking about that day and what all she had done, and talking about the trip to the dump and what all she got rid of. And I bet she's the one that brought up the dehydrator in that context. And then he said, what is that what you used to, poison them with? That's how I think it went down. I mean, I could be wrong. It's a big speculation. But that right there, the fact that could she possibly dump it the day of the meal? Bruh. I don't know.
There was CCTV footage, so the police would have that and they can work out when it was.
And there were other kitchen utensils we understand police sought in the dump.
What a lot of the workers said down there, because, look, they've been told not to say anything to media. So they basically said the police were here on Tuesday looking for, I think it was microwave trays and other utensils. So, obviously they're wondering what she did dump there and whether there's a chance she dumped other sort of kitchen utensils and things there.
They wouldn't have gone just to that tip. They would have gone to every tip in the area, and they would have interviewed all the relevant witnesses, the people that were present, and obtained all the exhibits.
According to mycologist Dr. Heike Neumeister-Kemp, police will be testing the food dehydrator for traces of death-capped mushrooms.
There would be certainly spores in the drying process. There would be certainly parts of the mushroom, the spores, or other bits be available on which you then could do DNA testing.
So you would expect that perhaps there might be some remnants of the mushrooms in the dehydrator.
If, in fact, it was used for that, which we have no knowledge of, but anything that is dried in there, of course, would leave a imprint, and a mushroom would leave a spore imprint.
Does drying the mushroom change anything, Heike?
No. Drying mushrooms is used very widely for preservation. It looks different, but the dried mushroom will have the same capacity.
Same capacity, it will. You can take a dried mushroom And it will have the same potency a year later that it did that day. I'm just saying, I don't know where I heard that from. I'm just saying it's true.
Also A, taste, and B, the toxicity that is inside it.
What would occur is obviously the water in the mushroom disappears, so you concentrate the toxin in the amount that's left, but of course the weight is less when you dehydrate it. So the amount of toxin stays the same in the whole mushroom, but you're now concentrating it into the cap.
Wait, 40 minutes? We're not watching this whole thing.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
All those still alive after the lunch, and including those who were originally to be there, will be of interest to police. And that includes Simon Patterson, Erin's former husband. Simon was to be at the lunch, but she says in her statement that prior to the day, he told her he would not be attending. In an extraordinary coincidence, more than 12 months before the lunch, Simon Patterson fell victim to a near-fatal gut illness himself, which he documented in a Facebook post. Michael, he was in a coma for 16 days.
Another one of these sus points of this case. Super sus.
He thought he was going to die. That's a serious illness, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a serious illness, that's right.
Do you think from what he says in his post, his symptoms could be similar to the kind of symptoms we've seen elsewhere in this kind of poisoning?
Well, there's some of the symptoms that are similar. Certainly that gastrointestinal, that violent gastrointestinal component. I don't know whether he experienced any liver-related toxicity. That would be something that I would be interested in knowing, but it's certainly a significant illness if he's in hospital for that period of time.
Could other mushrooms, poisonous mushrooms, not have attacked the liver?
Yes. If the illness occurs quite quickly after you've eaten the mushroom, then you've got a different type of mushroom. What is somewhat unique to this death cap mushroom is that 6-8 hour lag, and then you get better, and then that liver toxicity.
Hi, Kim.
Now, speculation again. Okay, if you wanted to poison somebody and you wanted them to not be able to figure out it was you, the amount of time that it takes for that toxin to kick in would be critical, because if you can have a staggered effect, a delayed effect, and some time would pass between you poisoning them and them actually, falling, to the mushroom, then the longer it takes, the harder it's going to be to pinpoint where it happened. So, I mean, if she did this on purpose, it sounds like she picked these mushrooms for a reason.
The first question I would ask, did you actually eat mushrooms back then? Or were there mushrooms consumed in and around that sickness?
We are not suggesting in any way that Erin Patterson was involved in her ex-husband's illness. In a case that's so baffling, it is just another mystery. Coming up...
Oh, Lord, he said, looks like these are poison mushrooms.
The mushroom meal in America...
And that, in fact, was the cause of death.
...that ended in a murder conviction. If they're able to identify the death cap...
For the laboratory, that's you're halfway there.
That's next on Under Investigation. Rarely has a case received so much media attention.
Tragic story.
3 people are dead.
Serving a deadly meal.
And that's because there is still much to learn.
New questions swirling about the deadly mushroom mystery.
Tonight, we've examined what we do know.
We've got 3 people who are deceased and 1 battling for their life, where it is believed that they've consumed mushrooms.
And what police will want to know.
We are working as hard as we can to try and identify why these deaths have happened.
What was the cause of the poisoning? And if it is because of death cap mushrooms as suspected, how did this toxic fungi come to be in Erin Patterson's beef Wellington?
If you intended to mask the fact that there was mushrooms in a dish, that would probably be a fairly good way of doing it.
And then there's the food dehydrator.
I still can't get my head around the dumping of the dehydrator.
The kitchen appliance Erin Patterson admits to disposing of and not being truthful about when she threw it away.
A lot of the items that we have seized will be forensically tested in the hope that that can shed some light on what has occurred at the lunch.
Investigations involving mushroom poisoning are complex. Weeks to months can be spent determining the toxins which deteriorate in the body quickly.
Each one of these cases are as individual as people are. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack.
John Chalfin is a former US county coroner in Indiana. 3 years ago, he investigated the baffling death of software entrepreneur David Fouts.
Just to let you guys know, before they even talk about this case, we gonna cover it, all right? Let that be known. I'm gonna try to figure out what I can figure out about it and see if there's any more information on what they say. But I want to cover this case too.
Walking along the side of this rarely traveled road in Hamilton County, a woman discovered a man's body in late April.
Our office received a call and we responded, and there was a body in a ditch. And it was apparent that it had been moved there. Right away, that indicated something nefarious was going on. There are virtually no injuries. There were a few scrape marks, which would have been from when his body was transferred.
The lack of any obvious cause of death hampered the investigation of David Fouts' murder, although his wife Katrina was an early suspect.
He and Katrina had been married for some time. And what ensued in the investigation was that she had a boyfriend who was a retired policeman, and the two of them conspired to get rid of the husband.
An autopsy was carried out in the hope of finding answers.
And the forensic pathologist, when he opened up the stomach, the first thing he said, "Oh Lord," he said, "looks like these are poison mushrooms."
DNA testing identified them as the potentially deadly white dome-cap mushroom, and extensive toxicology tests revealed traces of their poison in David Fouts' liver and kidneys.
So we knew that systemically he had absorbed the poison, and that, in fact, was the cause of death.
The investigators discovered Katrina Fouts had been researching deadly mushrooms. But they couldn't prove she'd fed the toxic fungi to her husband.
The one thing that we were never able to determine was how it was introduced. It was ingested, obviously, but was it the boyfriend? Was it the wife?
It's Isabella, you. The mattress cover has changed my life, and here is why. I had just...
Officially, the crime was described as homicide by unspecified means. And in April last year, Katrina Fouts was sentenced to 34 years for conspiracy to murder. And John Chalfin believes he knows how the killing happened.
They had two homes. One was a summer home that was in our county. When they searched the summer home, they found a pizza box. I believe that he had eaten a pizza and they dusted it with mushrooms.
Yo, that's dirty, man. How you gonna kill somebody with pizza? That's messed up. Super messed up. I mean, it is your last meal, though. Pizza for your last meal ain't that bad, I guess. But still, I love some pizza, man. That would be heartbreaking. Sit down some good freaking pizza, and next thing you know, you just die in the most excruciating death ever. It's horrible, man. Horrible.
Coroner Chalfin's experience illustrates how demanding it is for police investigating possible poisonings.
Poisonings are very remote. And then you have to be able to prove, was there intent to kill somebody? What was the motive? What was the opportunity? What was the agent? So all those things have to be satisfied in order to successfully prosecute someone.
In Australia, Victorian police have warned their investigation into the tragedy of Leongatha will not be speedy. They still need to determine with certainty that the beef Wellington Erin Patterson served to her guests had in it the poisonous death cap mushrooms. That requires long and complex testing to identify the toxin, something that may need international assistance.
Toxicology laboratories are set up for routine toxicology testing. This wouldn't be seen by routine toxicology. They would have to look for it. Now, the Victorian Institute of Forensic Medicine, which would be responsible for doing this testing, that's as good a laboratory as you'll find anywhere in the world. Now, whether they are able to do the testing, I don't know. It may be that they send the samples to Europe, perhaps, because that's where they see it more often. It may be that they get some expertise brought in from overseas.
Yes.
Translation to all this stuff right here, guys. Translation means that this might take a while. This will be really complex. It might take a while. And then the other problem with that is if they can't prove enough through this testing, and she did do this, she might get away with it. If she covered her bases properly, she might get away with it. Like if they can't find enough evidence of her processing these things, researching these things, she might get away with this.
But if they're able to identify the death cap,
For the laboratory, that's you're halfway there.
we know that the 4 elderly guests became desperately ill, but we also know, according to Erin Patterson, she felt unwell and she handed leftovers of the meat to the hospital toxicologists. So if that's correct, they have a specimen right there of the lunch. How important is that?
That would be critically important if they've kept it.
That would be a critical piece of evidence.
Part of the police investigations will be to determine whether or not...
I don't like how you said that, if they kept it. I don't like how they... I don't, because that's just another one of those things where if they didn't keep it and they can't test that, and they can't prove how they were poisoned, that's it. It's a wrap. She's going to get away with it.
Not, there has been foul play.
We have to keep an open mind in relation to this, that it could be very innocent.
And that will be about proving intent. Just because you're a careless cook doesn't make you a murderer. Police have named Erin Patterson as a suspect only because she's the cook, but they're obliged, as you said, to investigate whether there has been foul play. That's just a fact.
If she was an innocent agent, which is something that needs to be considered, fine, We don't know what all the facts are.
What do you need here now?
This will be conducted by a team or teams of detectives, supported by analysts, supported by forensic toxicologists, supported by all sorts of state-of-the-art investigative tools. I can assure you by the end of this, the police will be fully aware of all of the circumstances.
And in this thorough investigation, police would also be obliged to check whether or not there is a motive to cause harm.
You don't just kill somebody without a reason.
You need to. In most cases, people don't kill people that they don't know. They kill people that they know and that they grow to dislike for whatever reason.
Grow to dislike, maybe not being down with the reconciliation, that possibly, you know what I mean?
That's your motive aspect of things. Then you go to an opportunity. So you've got a means, which is perhaps a poison, an opportunity to deliver it.
Damien, having been on the ground, you've gone to these towns, you've spoken to the people, what did you come away with and what were the questions you might like to ask?
Oh, look, I think there's too many questions I'd like to ask because not one question on its own is going to sort of solve anything, really.
If you had one question for Erin Patterson. What might it be?
Did you do it? An admission is a good start to an investigation.
Coming up,
there's a lot of sadness here at the moment.
The grief of a small town waiting for answers.
A lot of people that have passed very suddenly, very unexpectedly, and very traumatically.
And the survivor who may help solve the mystery.
There are a lot of things that person may be in a position to clarify.
That's next on Under Investigation.
It's pretty there. It's super pretty there.
This case may have the whole world talking, but for a small town in Victoria, it's been a harrowing experience.
Tell me how I ended up here. When a tragedy happens in a small community, it has a real hurt. People hurt here, and it's been a difficult time over the last 3 weeks.
People are feeling very heavy with having lost such wonderful people that have been very much part of the community, part of the church, part of the school. So there's a lot of sadness here at the moment.
SJVC has been training medical assistants to hit the ground career ready for over 40 years.
For locals, this is not just a mystery, it is also a terrible tragedy. What would be the psychology in this very small location?
Look, it can certainly divide a small community over their beliefs or thoughts on what happened and how it makes them feel about who they trust and why. A lot of people that have passed very suddenly, very unexpectedly, and very traumatically.
They've lost 3 of their own. Don and Gail Patterson and her sister, Heather Wilkinson. These are people who've played important roles and central to the community.
Very known. So you can absolutely expect that this will have a dramatic effect and often sometimes for years to come on a community.
Yo, guilty or not, she's probably going to have to move. If she doesn't get arrested, convicted for this, if she did do this and gets away with it or didn't do it, I mean, legit, she's probably got to move that from that community more than likely. Those were key members of the community, and the way that this looks, just face value the way it looks with what we know, regardless if she did it or not, she's going to have to move.
But there is news that the condition of Heather's husband, Pastor Ian Wilkinson, may be improving.
There have been poisonings where people have recovered, and that's perhaps where we see at the moment one of the individuals in hospital, stable, but they may or may not, I don't know, they may be considering liver transplants and those sorts of things.
Today is a day of prayer for sole survivor Pastor Ian Wilkinson at the neighbouring Catholic Church in Korumburra as he recovers in hospital.
Ian Wilkinson could become a crucial witness. The importance of the surviving member of the lunch?
There are a lot of things that person may be in a position to clarify and details that person can give with regards to all of the circumstances surrounding this.
He could support or contradict certain things that have happened, and that will tell a lot.
And until this case is resolved, Erin Patterson will remain in the spotlight and a person of interest to police.
Devastating. And I'm grieving too.
For you tomorrow, I guess this is a prime example of where we have to be thoughtful about our public judgments, because it's now in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, certainly, I see people who have been pulled through, public trials that have nothing to do with whether the facts on the table are in fact what occurred, and huge pressure on them and reputations ruined. So yes, I do think people need to be really cautious around that.
Yeah. Can this be resolved?
Oh, I think it'll be resolved. I definitely believe that the police will come to an outcome that will either exonerate her or, stand up in court.
It'll definitely be resolved.
Yep.
Why are you so definite?
you've got all of the ingredients that you require. You've got a live victim in hospital. You've got all of the other material that the police are in the process of collecting, analysing. That they will come up with
There's a lot
a
there.
full and detailed report as to exactly what happened for both of those reasons.
This is one of the most serious cases of suspected poisoning by mushrooms in Australia. And host Erin Patterson will no doubt forever be burdened with the knowledge that the meal she cooked has resulted in a horrific tragedy. If you or someone you know has any information, we ask you to please call Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000 or contact us on our confidential email underinvestigation@9.com.au. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining me tonight, and I thank you. I'm Liz Hayes. Good night.
All right, guys. That's the doc. That's the documentary. That's what we got, man. I don't know what y'all think. For me, personally, I think she's guilty. I feel like she had motive. She had the means. Everything. It all lines up. I don't know, man. I really don't know. I know there's a lot more answers that we need. I got a ton more questions. I need to know about the surveillance footage at the tip. I need to know. They didn't even touch on the one thing they didn't touch on in this documentary is the fact that we have family friends that say that she has a collection of foraging and mushroom books at her house. So I need to know exactly what those books are comprised of, what all knowledge is in those books. And then I also need to have the digital evidence, right? I want to know about the internet searches and all that stuff. But I think one of the big red flags, though, is if she did dump that dehydrator the day of the poisoning, that's a huge red flag. That's a massive red flag. I don't know. I just feel like there's a ton of red flags. I feel like this is one of those cases that on face value is pretty clear cut, but the complexity of what has to be proved to even get an indictment, take her to trial, and get a conviction, it's going to take a lot. So, man, I don't know, guys. I don't know. We'll see how this one turns out. I'm intrigued, and I'm invested now. Obviously, we like almost an hour and a half on this review, and that's because I'm into this case now. I'm definitely into it. So, anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you guys hung out for this whole premiere, oh my lord, thank you so much. Damn, I wish I would have took the glasses off though, because that light is bright. And guys, that's usually why I have the glasses on. It's because the damn lights are bright, or I'm tired as hell, and it looks like I done smoked too much. All right, so that's the other reason why. But I figure I'd take it off though. Take them off because I had a subscriber, True Crime family, Miss Tennessee Sweetheart. There you go. There's the blue eyes. All right, man. There you go. But next, the glasses are going back on, though. That damn light's too bright. That being said, guys, let me know what you guys think down in those comments. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. Much love, TPP crew. And then all my flow over from the Turtle Gang, the Muskie Rats. Much love you all. I appreciate you guys being here. You guys know what it is. It's your boy, the Piscine Predator, a.k.a. TPP, baby. Till next video, I'm out, you all. Much love. Peace.